Hi everyone, welcome. Welcome to this session entitled Beyond the Suitcase, Proactive Initiatives by the Community. In this session, we will have the privilege to share three very interesting and complementary presentations. My name is Mauricio Fuentes. I work for a non-profit organization based in France called Les Doigts qui Rêvent, which translates Dreaming Fingers. We work for the inclusion of children with visual impairments. We are a publishing house specialized in the design, adaptation, and production of tactile illustrated books. Our books are distributed in France, but also in other countries. Dreaming Fingers, along with Harpo from Poland, we are the two non-academic partners of the Suitcase project. For this session, we will have the participation of Linda Eriksson with her presentation, What can the deafblind community take away from Suitcase? Also, Femke Krjiger will present Working with Loss and Potential, the benefits and thresholds of inclusive, innovative projects. And finally, Lisa van der Mark with the presentation, Thoughts of a Deaf-born, Deafblind Researcher on Deafblind related research. In their presentations, they will talk about their background. So I will let them tell you about themselves. But I just wanted to stress on the richness of their presentations as they express from their different perspectives and roles in society about key issues involving deafblindness, innovative projects, and research in the field. This will offer insights and inform the future steps beyond our project. After the presentations, we will have some time for questions. Therefore, please leave your questions in the Q&A box. And I remember panelists that they do not have access to the Q&A box, but you can place your questions in the chat and someone will transfer them to the Q&A box. So once more, welcome, and I hope you enjoyed the session. We can start the presentations. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Linda Eriksson, and I'm working as a pedagogue at the National Resource Center for Deafblindness, NKCDB, here in Sweden. I'm also a board member of the Association of the Swedish Deafblind, FSDB. Also, here during the Suitcase project, I've been an advisor within the project. When the project was started, I was asked to be an advisor. And I found it, at the beginning, I must admit that I first was a bit hesitant and skeptical. And why is that? Yes, because over the years, I met too many people who want to do something good just for persons with deafblindness and think they know what is good for persons with deafblindness without really understanding what deafblindness is about. But my own approach has always been to do something together with persons with deafblindness instead of for them. Now, when the Suitcase project is carrying out its final event, I've been asked to answer a couple of questions. First being, what the deafblind community can take away from the Suitcase project, as well as what impact such a project can have in the deafblind community, and what remains to be done. And well, I can say that my hesitation and skepticism was completely unnecessary. The deafblind community is a very small and rather closed world. But the Suitcase project has opened new ways and created networks between people who otherwise wouldn't have known each other. Most of the project members have been very humble and responsive, and have really taken to heart the experiences that persons with deafblindness have shared, and also done their very best to try to understand what deafblindness is about. My conclusion, based on the Suitcase project, are that the deafblind community must dare to take the step into unknown areas and collaborate with people from other fields to benefit from their knowledge. And deafblindness is a rather unknown disability. But just see now how many people who through the project actually have learned something about deafblindness. And in the future, I hope that the active participation of the deafblind community, as showcased in the Suitcase project, can influence the definition and direction of new projects and further research. I'm sure that almost all persons with deafblindness would benefit from getting haptic impressions, and therefore would also benefit from the Suitcase project. But I think that the haptic impression that each individual person wishes to get based on is based on what's important to the person in question in each specific life situation, and that can differ a lot. Then what remains to be done? Well, I would say it is to make it possible to adapt the prototype of Suitcase to individual needs and desires, and to make it possible for persons with deaf blindness to have it as a personal technical aid. In today's society, it is a challenge. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I am Femke Krjiger and I would like to share some thoughts with you about creating an inclusive working environment. Basically coming down to working with loss as well as potential and make it work for you. Besides being a mother and a partner, I'm an entrepreneur with a specific passion for sensory awareness and body awareness. And obviously those two are very closely linked. And the reason I have this specific passion is because I've noticed and I've experienced myself the strong impact those two fields of awareness have on your daily well-being and on your self-awareness. Besides being an entrepreneur, I'm also an international researcher with a legal background. And all this is linked to my personal journey, which is living my life with progressive deaf blindness because of Usher type 2A. At this moment, I see very little. At an optimum circumstances, I see about 8%, but still the vision is very blurred, flashes and all visual snow. So the visual side is very diminished, as well as the hearing. And at this point in my life, I can still cope with 2 hearing aids and a lot of logical thinking. Over the years, I've been working in many different environments, and I've noticed that more and more the tendency is to work more inclusively. However, I've also noticed how difficult it is. Often the intention is really good, but reality shows that there are a lot of barriers and a lot of ignorancy that really prevents all of us to benefit from an inclusive working environment. Because that's why we want inclusiveness. Inclusiveness is about different perspectives coming together and gives you a whole new perspective on what you've known for so long. A problem, an idea, whatever, a rehabilitation program. And I've noticed that to work really inclusively takes a lot of courage and it takes time. It's a process of getting to know each other, getting to know what it means to work more inclusively. And I would like to highlight a few of the benefits as well as the barriers. Well, the benefits, I think, are rather obviously, and you can find them all over the internet. And I think it all comes down to that it really has a high impact, because bringing together these different perspectives, creating this new way of looking at things, it creates true impact. It helps true change. And I think that is necessary in today's world, where we face really serious problems at many fields of our lives. So working inclusively is not something that's political correct. I think it's an absolute necessity. However, as I said, it isn't easy. And the barriers that come with it, I think we should take them really seriously. The first and foremost barrier, which is often, I believe, overlooked, is the experience barrier. If we listen to another person, if we listen to the story he or she is telling us, often we listen to it within our own framework, our own framework of reference, which is completely logic, because that's how we're built. That's how we give meaning to what gets in, to what we get from the outside world. However, when it comes to an inclusive innovative working environment, it's not that you give meaning as you are used to, but that you're open to new meaning giving. So basically it is about what you see is what you get, and that's no longer true, because it's not true that what you see is what you get. No, inclusive working means that you realize that what you see is just the beginning of what you can get. And to really gain new perspectives means you're open to new worlds, to things you could not imagine, to things you did not experience so far yourself. Now, this takes courage. It takes time. It takes flexibility. It gives you a little discomfort in the beginning, because in a way it can feel like you can't grasp it. And that's exactly what's the goal of an inclusive working theme. Because this discomfort, in the end, can turn out to be something new and truly innovative. So, the experience barrier, you really have to take it seriously. And you have to spend a lot of time exchanging stories, really simple, everyday stories, to understand how different everyday's perception and sensory experiences are. Then secondly, and this is very closely linked to the first one, is communication. In every situation where you try to really exchange ideas, create new things, you really need to have this good communication environment. Working with deafblindness, this might be very difficult in the beginning. It takes time because you need good lighting. You need no background noise that is disturbing the sound. You need maybe interpreters. You need communication breaks, which may seem very unnatural in the beginning. And there are many other aspects that come with good communication when it comes to working inclusively with a person who is deafblind. All this often, in my experience, is faced to the deafblind person, as if the deafblind person needs this and then it's okay. And I really would like to point out that it's two ways, because you have to realize that when the deafblind person can't really join an interaction or can really join a discussion, it's not only difficult for the deafblind person, him or herself, there is missing a lot of potential there that's not being shared at that moment because the circumstances aren't good enough. So when a deafblind person is being excluded because the circumstances are not adjusting the things he or she needs, then also the whole theme is missing something, and not just the deafblind person. I think this is the true mindset of inclusive working. And then financial arrangement, another barrier. I often mentioned it because people think like, yes, this is difficult, but we were working on it. Or, yeah, sure, we really appreciate what you're doing. But in reality, the fact is that often I'm not paid as I should have been paid when I wasn't included as a deafblind person sharing my experiences. As I was being paid as a professional with my professional expertise, I would have been paid much more equal. Now, this is not something I really want to complain about. However, when you talk about inclusive working, this is an aspect you have to think about, because it says something about how the input is being valued. And inclusive working is about equal appreciation. And this also has to do with financial arrangements. And then finally, I would like to share the profile aspect. I've noticed that often my being deafblind was enough to get me in some kind of project. And it was me who at some point in time said, well, no, it's not just my deafblindness I want to share. I want to share my experiences as well as my expertise, my professional expertise on a very specific topic, namely body awareness and sensory awareness. So when you want to hire me, when you want to benefit my experiences, my knowledge, you can do that on this field of expertise. This is something often lacking because I've noticed that often organizations or working team find it so difficult to find deafblind people that whenever you find one, they're happy. And I don't think that should be the way. I think you really have to create an infrastructure where deafblind people with their very specific talents, their specific interests, the specific expertise can be found by organizations, by companies, by policymakers who have to find the right person for the right question. And also this is a very important aspect, I believe, if you talk about working with loss and potential and make it work for you. Well, all these are aspects of an inclusive working environment, and all are still very important and very much in need to be developed. And I noticed that in a lot of situations, we all know these aspects are there and we agree upon it. However, when it comes to reality, we often skip it. And this you can see in the end of a lot of research projects, developments, that in the end there is a gap. There is a gap between those who really wish to create something that has high impact for example, the deafblind community, and then it doesn't fit completely. And I believe that if you consider all the aspects and many more I just discussed and bring it together and take time to go through it and create this inclusive environment, then you have a really strong common ground where you can create new products, new ideas, new visions that really fit not only the deafblind community, but today's society and the questions we all have to find answers for in today's world. So that's why I really strongly believe in this inclusive working environment. And I believe that sensory awareness and body awareness can play a very important part in it. As you can see in the biofeedback, neurofeedback, even myofeedback developments at this moment in time. Myself, I hope I can be part of this development. And yes, I would like to include my deafblind experiences in it, try to make it of value, but it's not me being a deafblind person that gives me the ticket to join. It should be the combination of who I am, of the expertise I gathered throughout my life, and deafblindness is an important part of that. I truly hope I've inspired you to think over the different aspects, and hopefully we meet again and we can continue this conversation. Thank you so much. Bye.
Hi, my name is Lisa. Well, who am I? I'm a deafblind researcher. I'm working on my PhD since 1 year now, and I'm a deafblind signer. So first I'm gonna tell something about my background. I was born deaf, and now I'm deafblind. I went to hearing school and the deaf school, and I was a lot in the deaf community, so I have the deaf culture in me. Also from the hearing world. And I think the last 5 or 10 years I was more in touch with deafblind people. So I have this in me as well. So I have all different influences in me. So during my research on the topic deaf-blind, I noticed that many researchers are well hearing or good sighted, good vision. And deaf-blind researchers, there are really not a lot, and I think that's a pity. For researching deaf-blind people, deaf-blind researchers would have a different vision because they have this experience. And how, on the research method, how, I mean, very strong hearing or well-sighted people, they use camera, so images, or they use interview style like microphone and voices. But for me, as a deaf-blind researcher, it's difficult to watch these films, and I cannot hear the spoken interviews. So I would hope for a more tactile research method. I hope we can develop that. And what about the topics, the subjects? I mean, you have topics like tactile sign language, research on tactile sign language, or the mental health. But most of the researchers are from the opinion of the vision of well-hearing, well-sighted people. And there's not much about the ideas of the deaf-blind. And the same I see, there's a big gap between the world of the deaf-blind people, the deaf-blind community, and then you have this big gap, and then you have the hearing well-sighted researchers. And so research about deaf-blind people is mostly focused on people who are born deaf-blind, or when they got deaf-blind on an older age, or deaf-blind people who still use their left hearing. But really deaf-blind people who use sign language, there's not much research on that. We have research on tactile sign language and on the mental health situation, yes, but besides that, there's not much. So what if researchers would be more focused on the community, on the deaf-blind? I mean, most of the research is more about the negative points. No, it's more focused on the negative points are this and this and that. But there's not much positive points, well, focused on. And they should focus more on the positive side. And also technical support. We don't have much technology for deaf-blind people, For example, you have these gloves with the ABC, but there is nothing technical support on tactile sign language. So I hope that will come. So in my utopia for deafblind researchers, how would that look like? I would like to have deafblind researchers guiding the research, to have more commitment with the deafblind community. And yeah, also for research, that the research is more tactile based. And that deaf-blind people can look up to other deaf-blinds, like, hey, he or she is a deaf-blind researcher. And I would like to see equal communication and understanding between all the researchers, also in language. And also that these people get paid for their knowledge and their time investment. And also what I would like to add is that, hearing people have different subjects and different opinions, probably, than deaf-blind researchers. And maybe it's more positive or negative, but it doesn't matter. It's the opinion of a deaf-blind researcher. Thank you. Bye.
Well, thank you for these really inspiring presentations. Now I would like to invite our presenters, Linda, Femke, and Lisa, to join us here. That's great. Now we are all in screen. And I would like to, there's a question that just arrived, so we can start with this question. And for those who are still thinking about your questions, please leave them in the Q&A box. So I'm happy to start with the first question that it reads, Lisa, you mentioned that people often focus on the negative things. Could you tell more about your positive experiences with technology?
Sorry, I forgot to turn on the mic. So more positive experiences with technology is the question. I'm not sure. Let me think about it. Maybe you could pose your question in a different way so I can understand better.
So if I understand well, the question of the participant is that maybe if you can give some examples of positive experiences you've had. I would expand the question as a researcher and also as a user of technology.
Well, I do still use my eyes, so that is a benefit for using technology. I can use the zoom function. For example, I can use tactile communication, but I don't use that actually in technology because I don't have the patience for it.
Maybe I can add something,
Yeah.
because as I listened to Lisa's story, it reminded me also of that often the negative side of that blindness, which is obviously there because the lack of sight and hearing is being focused on. Well, instead, there is still a lot of potential, but it sometimes needs something extra to make it available. to us, as a deafblind person. So, and I think SUITCEYES is a perfect example of that, because instead of looking at the bad side, the bad hearing, it's focusing on the potential, the tactile potential. So I think maybe that's also what you meant, Lisa, or am I now interpreting in the wrong way? That research could be done more focused on the potential.
Well, recently research has been started where I've been reading literature about that, and usually they do focus on the fact that people don't see and hear, and that brings up obstacles. And if there would be technical solutions for that, usually it regarding to a written language or a braille or the gloves, or at least language. But there's nothing about sign language in there. So that is something that I still miss in literature and research.
Okay, there is a specific question also for Lisa concerning what is your research topic in your PhD?
Sorry, that made me smile because I have a very nice topic. So I'm focusing on international sign with tactile signing, what that contains, and how that looks with using international sign in a tactile context.
Okay, thank you very much. I think I had also some questions, but I'm having so many questions coming in that I will continue with the participants' questions. And here there's a...
Sorry, Mauricio, I think Linda has an answer too.
Ah, sorry, I didn't see the hand up. Thank you, Nasrin. Linda, please go ahead.
Yes, I just wanted to add that when we talked about earlier about benefits, the pros and the cons. So what I would like to add is just that oftenly when we talk about deafblindness and technique or technical aids, so forth, then I think we should, what we should do is to well, work with things that doesn't work. I mean, we are using the little residual hearing or the sight that we actually have. We can see for a little bit, and then we should take advantage of that, use aids, hearing aids to hear, but when they don't work perfectly, then we need to add something. So it's good to base stuff on what already works. Tactile, social haptic, these things that are working for us, to build on those things. That I would like to say is could be the positive outcome of this technique project, for instance. And I think we are doing a little bit too little of that, and too much of things that well, actually don't help us much on the field.
Yeah, I think there's a question, an open question for all of you three, that I think is quite pertinent, and it's how can researchers and the deafblind community work together to build a strong and long-lasting connections? I think it's a really important question, because in all of you, in one way or another, addressed this. So who would like to maybe try to answer? Linda? Yes.
Well, this is me, Linda, and I'm trying to do a bit about what Femke said earlier. You mentioned, Femke, that we, with deafblindness, we have deafblindness, and we are not supposed to just be invited to project because of our deafblindness. And exactly that is what I think is the most important aspect to take with us from today on this issue. Because oftenly what happens is exactly what Femke said, that researchers or maybe policy makers they seem to be so happy that they've found someone. This must be the best person to represent the deaf-blind community. But it's not enough just to have deaf-blindness. You must also get in contact with a person with deaf-blindness that also have something else, that have knowledge about, I don't know, about some issue that the researcher are about to investigate or work with. It isn't enough that it's just the deaf-blindness perceived. It's not enough. It must be something else, technique, or if it's about, I don't know what it could be, but I think we should take on the reverse perspective. We have deaf-blindness, of course, but we also need to get in touch with those deaf-blind persons that can teach us something, that can educate us, that can inform us about this field further. It isn't sufficient enough that it's just deaf-blindness. Thank you.
Yes, Femke, please.
Yes, if I can add to that, I completely agree. But to also make it very practical, I think we should build an infrastructure, and this cannot be done in one place. I think this should be done nationally and internationally. Nationally, well, I tell the rehabilitation centers here in the Netherlands to, really create profiles and create a database with deafblind people in it, and not only that they're deafblind and the kind of deafblindness they have, but also their specific interests, the specific talents, the specific, create a profile and create this database. And this also can be done internationally, I believe. And this can be done at the DBI or other organizations that passed by over these days. But also like the Suitcase platform. I mean, there could be a database over there. And I think that over time, this infrastructure will grow, and all participants will get used to it. So deafblind people, when they know this is existing, at some point they will be more actively putting their name, putting their interests, their expertise in it. And the other way around, if researchers know this kind of infrastructure, databases exist, maybe they more easily go looking for the right person. So I think this takes time, but it also needs to be created. And this is not just happening by coincidence. This needs active action.
Thank you very much, Femke. I'm overwhelmed because there are so many questions, and we have just we arrived to the end of the session, unfortunately. But I will make sure to take these questions and I will address them to you. So maybe you can have an answer through the Q&A box, or even further with some emails, because people are also leaving some email information, email addresses, so you can get in contact. So it's amazing, the reactions from everyone. I thank you all for your questions. We do have to stop for our break, but I would like to thank our presenters for such inspiring and really important talks that will certainly inform, and it will give us insight to think on the future. That is the main topic that we want to address in the following sessions. So thank you once more, and hope to see you in the next sessions and maybe have the opportunity to continue these discussions. Thank you very much.